I bought this 8N loader tractor a little while ago with hopes that one day I would be able to handle round bales with it. Now, in order to reach that goal, the first thing that had to be done is I had to get this thing mechanically sound, and we're not quite there yet, but we're getting closer. Tonight I'm taking a little bit of a break from that though, and I'm gonna be doing more of a fabrication style project as I build the bale spear for the front end loader. That's what we're doing tonight on Farmertylerranch. I've pretty well settled on a design for this tractor, and I'm not sure that it's the best, but the way this front end loader is situated, it's a little bit different, so I was kind of limited to what I could do. Now, rather than draw pictures and try to explain to you guys what I'm planning on doing here, I think the easiest way to do this is to just show you. So the first thing that I need to do is cut out a bunch of pieces of metal and drill a bunch of holes. I think I've reached a point now where I can start tacking together some of the pieces that I've cut out, because the rest of the pieces that I need to make, those measurements are gonna depend on how these first pieces fit up. And I know that's kind of confusing, so it's gonna just be easier to show you. I'm gonna start by welding or tacking the ears or tabs on this main bar here that's gonna connect to the lower links on the tractor. And once I get that all done, then I can sort of figure out how tall I can make my center mast where my top link is gonna hook up to. I thought that I would stop right here and show you guys how I'm rigging up this inner tab here to make sure that it's perfectly straight and on a perfect right angle. So I know that the piece of tube that this pin is going to go through is 3 inches wide. So I'm going to take a piece of 3-inch square tubing, set it right here, and then I can take my tab and clamp it up to that tube. That way I know these are perfectly parallel, but there's another thing that you got to remember to do, and that is to stick a little bit of a spacer in between the square tubing and this tab, because you don't want this to be perfectly 3 inches like the piece that it's fitting over, or else it'll be really hard to fit it up. So what I do is grab a few washers and just sort of stick them in there, and then that will shove this piece out maybe a 1/16 of an inch or so. And then when I go to put this on the tractor, it should make my life a lot easier. And the last, maybe most important step before I start putting tacks down is I want to put my pin in here to make sure that these holes align and that that pin is not binding, basically just making sure that it'll be easy to get in and out. Pin feels pretty good, so I think I can go ahead and tighten my clamp down and put some tacks on this piece. Now, if I did everything right and nothing moved, this pin should still be somewhat loose, So it's tighter than it was, but I can still move it, so I'm sure it's gonna be fine. I think this is pretty good now. We can go ahead and test fit it on the tractor. When I tried to fit this up initially, I was having trouble getting this hole to align, and I don't know if the loader frame is a little bit tweaked or if it's just because everything's new and it's still fitting tight. But now that I've got everything pinned up, it fits up pretty good. So I've got this 3/4 inch piece on the ground here, and that's just to account for the lift here in the pins, just so I can get this thing sitting flat on the ground, because the next measurement that I need to take is going to help determine where this top ram is going to tie in. The first thing that I need to do here is to swing this ram out so that where the pin is going to hook up here is directly over this piece of square tubing. And I don't really have a great scientific way of doing this, but I'm just going to stick this piece of metal in there and try to get it close. Now that I've got this pretty well squared up here, I need to take a measurement from the top of the square tubing to the center of the pin. It looks like it's about 10 3/4. So that matters because I need to know what size to cut my pieces here that'll build the tower that this will eventually hook into. All right, the tower here is looking pretty good and all the measurements are looking good too. So I'm trying to be careful and not do any finish welding on this until I can really test fit everything and make sure it's good. But these joints on the tower, I mean, there's no way that that's gonna need to change. So I think I can go ahead and finish welding those. And at that point, we'll be ready to weld the tower onto the main frame. The wall on this square tubing is 3/16, so it's not the thickest stuff in the world. And I feel pretty confident that a MIG weld on these joints is gonna be plenty strong enough. When we get to the tabs that hook into the loader though, we're definitely gonna have to break out the stick welder and burn some 7018. I've got this piece of 2-inch flat bar clamped onto the main frame here, and this edge of the flat bar is right in the middle of the main frame, so I can use this to align the tower both front and back and side to side. Everything on the bale spear is tacked up and mounted. Everything's fitting good. So far, I would say that this thing is just about done. But before I go ahead and finish welding it, there's a couple of tests that I need to perform to make sure that I don't need to make any changes, because the last thing that I want to do is weld this all together and realize that there's a problem. So test number one's looking pretty good. With that top ram completely collapsed, that spear is tilted back a little bit. That's exactly how I wanted it. The next thing that I wanted to double check is something that, again, I'm 99% sure it's gonna be fine, but I just wanna make sure that the tilt using the top ram is gonna work okay. So what I'll do is I'll pick that up a little bit higher, and then we'll just test the tilt and see how steep of an angle I can get that spear tilted down, as if I was gonna be dumping a bale off into a feeder. To tell you the truth, that's really not as steep of an angle as I was hoping for, but I think it's gonna be all right. And we'll get into this a little bit later, but the way that I'm gonna make the feeders, I don't think I'll actually be dumping the bale in there. What I'm sort of envisioning is making feeders with a cradle where I could set the bale in the cradle and then back straight out of it. So we should be okay for the way that I'm gonna be using it. Now, the next thing that I wanna check is I wanna lift that loader all the way up as high as it will go. And as I do that, that bale spear angle is gonna start to flatten out. So what I need to make sure of is that when the loader is at maximum height, that bale spear is still flat, or hopefully it's actually still tilted down a little bit, so that I know when I'm loading the barn, I'll be able to back off of the bales. All right, well, that test went about as bad as I probably could have hoped for. I honestly didn't anticipate body damage to the tractor when I did that. So as you can see, this is not gonna work the way that it is. With the loader at maximum height, that bale spear is still really tilted back, and there would be no way to back off of the bale when it's like that. So I'm gonna have to make some changes to this design, because the way it is right now, not gonna work. All right, I've been looking at this thing and trying to kind of understand how the different angles work together to get you that tilt, and what I can do to my spear mount to maximize that. And there's two different ideas that I've come up with. My first idea is to relocate these bottom pin mounts and move the loader frame of the tractor in closer to the mounts on the bale spear. So what that would do is it would kind of swing the bottom in towards the tractor a little bit and give me a little bit more angle. The other thing that I like about that idea is it actually holds the load closer to the tractor and puts less stress on the hydraulic system. The other idea is to relocate this top pin, and kind of the same idea, just move it back towards the tractor a little bit, so that way it will in turn tilt the spear mount forward a bit. Both things kind of accomplish the same thing, but what I like about moving the bottom pin mounts is that it's going to help center that load a little bit more. So I think I'll try that first. If I'm not happy with those results, then I can try to relocate the top mount. And if that still doesn't really accomplish what I'm trying to do, then that might just be the limitations of what this tractor can do. And because cutting those tabs off and moving them is really not that different from when I put them on before, I'm not going to film it. We'll just pick the video right back up after I get these fixed. All right, it's about an hour later. Let me show you what we got. I moved those pinholes in as far as I possibly could. As you can see now, the loader arms are almost touching the bale spear mount, but not quite. So if it still doesn't work, at least I know that I'm getting all I can get out of that. I guess now there's really nothing left to do but pull the tractor back outside, pick the loader up, and see if we help things any. So you can see with the bucket up at probably about what ride height would be while you're carrying a bale, it still has a slight tip back, and that's good because that is something that we need. The real question is going to be, once we get the loader up, where's that tilt going to be then? Things are looking a little bit better, but I'm still not able to utilize the full travel of that loader, but man, we're pretty close. I'm gonna try to get a tape measure up there and see how high that spear is, and I basically just need to determine if I'm gonna be able to make a pile of round bales that are 3 tiers high. With the spear perfectly horizontal, it measured out at just over 10 feet. And I think that from what I can determine, if I make 4 foot or 4.5 foot bales, that'll be just high enough. This will kind of limit me because I won't be able to make bigger bales, but I mean, let's be honest, 4 foot bales are already going to be a challenge for this tractor to pick up. So it might actually be a good thing that when I'm baling, I know I can't make bigger bales. So because I'm pretty happy with this design and it looks like it's gonna work for the bales that I'm gonna be making, I'm gonna go ahead and finish welding up this main frame. Once that is done, then I've just gotta figure out how to add 2 little stabilizer spears to the bottom somewhere, and I think this thing will be ready for paint. I got all the big square tubing in this frame welded up with the MIG welder, and now I need to weld these larger 1/2 inch thick tabs to it. I'm not gonna do that with the MIG welder though, because the metal is so thick that I would really feel a lot more comfortable stick welding those. Stick welders penetrate the metal deeper and create a stronger weld, and because all these thick tabs are gonna be used to hold this spear mount to the tractor, strength is it's everything with these. So I want to make sure that I do it right. It takes a little bit more time and a little bit more cleanup to stick weld, but in the end, you have a much stronger weld and I won't have to worry about it. And there we have it. After a couple of weeks of working nights here in the shop, I finally got this bale spear done. I'm not sure that I won't want to make some adjustments in the future. There's a couple things on here that I'm not really sure about how good they're going to work. Specifically, I'm talking about these little stabilizer spears. I just made them out of 1 inch solid round, and I'm not sure that that's going to be stout enough. They could bend, but if they do, it's not really a huge deal. That's why I made them bolt-on, so they'd be easy to replace and also easy to upgrade in the future if I decide that they need to be. Now that this is finally finished, I can move on to the next job on this tractor, and that is to tear into this loader, get the hydraulic system up to snuff, and fix a few major leaks. Not to mention the fact that I think I may have found part of the reason why the hydraulic pump squeals so bad. As we follow the leak down the side of the tractor here, you can see that this yellow nasty oil is what is in this hydraulic system. And I don't know what kind of oil is supposed to go in there, but I know it's not supposed to look like that. So I've got some new oil. I'm gonna totally flush this system and get all fresh oil in there. But before I do that, I need to go through and get all these leaks fixed, get the lift cylinders rebuilt, and hopefully this loader will be back to as strong as it ever was. Thanks for hanging out in the shop with me today, guys, and I hope I'll see you again on Farmer Tyler Ranch.